Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we have a very different video as per is the trend lately. About 2 or 3 weeks ago I was challenged by David Dean to talk about player retention, and I watched David's video, and a lot of what he was talking about, the impression I got, is kind of like a prestige system for the entire Twin Peaks quest line. He stated that there were good rewards, which there are. There's probably over 1 million Survivor XP sitting around in there to get. There are several transform keys. From what I recall, basically there was one for each thing. So there's a defender one, melee weapon, range weapon, weapon in general. I think there was a trap one. There was one for each hero type, things of that nature. And while I do think that that the goal is what we need a way to get more transform keys, more experience, things of that nature. I don't know if I agree that the way of going about that goal is to prestige your account. So I've come up with a couple of ideas, but for me the root of this problem is there's actually 2 areas where player retention is in trouble in Fortnite. The first area is obviously the endgame. There, to an extent, there really isn't much of an endgame. You get to max level, 124-ish, maybe 125, not really sure. You max out your survivors and you get to 120. Then the rest of your levels come from research. So that's basically the end game right now. And then the other portion of the game I think that has trouble with player retention is near the end of Plankerton and the beginning of Canny Valley. So I'm going to actually have to talk about this at length, and it's going to be 2 different videos. This video will be the first video, and we're going to be talking about the first issue, which is endgame player retention. Yeah, so this is scripted, but it's also like I'm loosely following the script. After you get to the end of SSD 6 and you complete it in Twin Peaks, you're basically left with nothing to do. You can do 7, 8, 9, and 10, of which I'm working on 7 still. And from there, you're just kind of there gathering stuff for not really much of a point. The other thing that you're doing is waiting around for events. So, with that being said, let's talk about what I think that we could do. Also, for starters, as endgame players, we're left grinding anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 missions to cap out our levels. To cap out your survivor squads, if you had all legendaries, takes approximately 25 million survivor experience. And if you were to do that just in Twin Peaks, you would need approximately 1,000 missions of just survivor XP missions. So that's actually really, that's a lot. Let's be pretty clear about that. So the problem is that there's nothing really difficult for those endgame players. There's nothing difficult, there's nothing rewarding. To this end, I think that leaderboards should be added, and there should be a set of static missions that are level 100 and go up to 140 in Twin Peaks. These missions would have mission modifiers, and the reason that they're going to stay up for an entire week is because the leaderboards would give people a way to be competitive with each other. This would give endgame players a way of competing with each other and give a competitive edge to save the world that really just isn't there right now. The last time we saw people being competitive were the people that were pushing higher and higher into Horde Bash, and we haven't seen Horde Bash since the first iteration of it. The leaderboards could have some different ways of being used, such as who completed the missions the fastest, who, did the most damage, who even reaches the mission of 140. And we could even go above 140. We could go with some extra power level in Twine Peaks as far as the mobs go, but not give the players more. Similar to Horde Bash. As players reach the cap of 140 in Twine Peaks, we could make these missions cap out around 150 or 160, and that would truly bring some challenging content to the game that a lot of people just don't have right now. I think that would help a lot. Not only would players be competing for a spot on these leaderboards, but we could have Epic, or not we could have, but Epic could offer players some cool banners at the end of the week for completing these missions. And then for ranking on the leaderboard, you could get a gold, silver, or bronze border around your banner. These banners could be weekly specific, and once they're gone, you wouldn't see that one again. Maybe it would come back colored differently at a later date. That's one thing that's really cool about the first Survive the Storm banners, is those haven't come back. So that person got that in Survive the Storm. They did level 40 or level 70, whatever they did. I wear level 40 because that's what I did. And you can't get that again. And I think that there's some really cool limited availability type of mindset that goes with that. You could also display where they ranked on the leaderboard on their banner, and maybe near the bottom. And that could say the top 100 people or the top 200 people, because 200 people would be 50 teams. So the top 50 teams, more or less, would also be able to show where they ranked on the leaderboard. Another way of rewarding players for completing truly high-end difficult versions of these missions could be with transform keys. So you could give them legendary transform keys, and that would be a good incentive for them to continue playing, and they could continue trying to get their perfect loadout that they're looking for, or the perfect rolls on their guns, and it's less intensive than spending a lot of money on llamas. I think these two rewards sound like pretty good incentives to me, and I think a lot of people would actually want to go after things like that. That's a very long idea, so let's try and make this next one a little bit easier. How about adding a repeatable quest for people that have finished through like SSD 8 or even SSD 10 for Twine Peaks? Because, this needs to be really hard to attain, or not necessarily really hard, but it needs to be a repeatable quest that takes some getting to. And I think that this repeatable quest could require 15 or 20 missions, whatever they think is fair. And when you finish, you get a choice between legendary schematics. This could be legendary range, legendary weapons, legendary traps, whatever people need to fill out their loadouts, this would help them get there. And you could argue that, maybe they don't need it, but if they implemented that first thing, that first idea of ours, then they would have a way of being more competitive. And I think that would help quite a bit. I think these different schematics could give you what you need to play something different. Like, I didn't play Ranger Deadeye until I want to say the end of Canny, maybe the beginning of Twine Peaks, and that's because I just didn't have the pistols for it. So I had to wait on getting those pistols in order to try something different. I think that there needs to be a lot more variety. And giving people more loot that's differentiated is a way to do that. Another thing I would like to see is for events to last a maximum, please dear God, a maximum of 3 weeks. Buff the gold so people can get the amount of gold that they need to get their rare event items or the hard to get ones, and then make it only last 3 weeks. They tried to address the issue I have with this, and the issue of people only coming back for a week or so of an event in the beginning by stretching out the deployment of the event. During this one, the Spring and Dawn event, we've gotten new chunks of quest line every week, which has been pretty good. But that's also only good for events that are quest related. Survive the Storm was around for like 40 days. That's a long time. We could half that, and I think people would be fine. You know, that was an event that was based around a certain game mode or a different map, which I think those, for me, those events are much more important and much more fun. I think that if they're able to roll over those events faster in like 3 weeks or so, that they can respond to player feedback a lot faster. Also, I mean, let's throw it out there. What's up with Horde Bash? I want them to bring that back, and they need to... They should probably, when they bring it back, they need to put leaderboards in there. And they can do it on a team level, so that the leaderboard isn't massive. They'll just list everyone that was on the team that was there. And because this was already something that was kind of going on in the community, but there was really no way to track it unless you made a video of it. So Horde Bash definitely needs some leaderboards. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed Horde Bash, and if we could make it more competitive and more fun for the community, I think it would be great. You could have it time-based even, and that's an easier one to do. And the way you would be forced to get around that is there's 10 waves. You could do 5 that were timed, and then 5 that were waves of kill X number of husks. The reason you want to do 5 and 5 is so you could alternate each one, or you could just randomly throw them in there all together. But you also want it to be fair, so like one team isn't sitting there with 8 waves of waiting in the timeout. I think that would be pretty good. Another thing that I think should be addressed is that there's no community features in the game. We don't have guilds, we don't have clans. I would like to see a way to bring everyone together under one kind of roof. Sort of like World of Warcraft. That was the last time I was in a clan or a guild. And I think that would help build the community and make them stronger, because online games like these, in my opinion, you come for the game, but you stay for the community. Stay for the friendships you make. And I think that's really important in this game. And I think that's all that I really got to talk about for now. What it really boils down to for player retention at the high end, in my opinion, is they need to nurture a competitive culture in the high-level player community. They need to reward people that play those high-level things, those high-level missions and everything of that nature. And that will actually help boost the player pool for people that are still trying to get there. They're still trying to get through Twin Peaks. But if I can go do a couple missions that are, 76, 82-ish, and we can help get, everyone up to that level.
How are we going to run outside?
I think that's pretty much all we have to say about this for now. I really hope that Epic looks at this video and they can see some of these ideas, and hopefully they'll like them as much as I enjoyed coming up with them. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be coming eventually. That will be covering player retention in the mid-game, more so. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. I think now would be pretty much as good a time as any, right? And I wanted to thank you guys for lasting this long. I'm Dash Brandon, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.